I did not wake up one morning and say, now I want to make sim racing equipment. I think sim racing be an achievement in its own. If I can sell a wheelbase and a pair of pedals to people who already invested $1,000 in a steering wheel, for example, hey, that's fine with me. And I don't want Kevin Magnussen to say that Asetek Simsport is the preferred brand. What we say is, if you buy one of our wheelbases, a Formula One driver, who's actually been a big part of tuning all these parameters, so it feels like as close as you can get in a home simulator.
So André, just me only started just a brief introduction who you are and who is Asetek.
Yeah, my name is André, as you already disclosed. I'm the founder and the CEO of Asetek. I founded the company back in '97, for those of you that are that anxious. And our focus have always been gaming, and we have been selling liquid cooling into the gaming market for many, many years. Our big customers are, for example, Dell, Alienware, Asus, NZXT, etc. And then what is it now? 3-4 years ago, we started to enter the sim racing market also.
Perfect. So my mandatory question always when we start the podcast is define sim racing on your own words.
Huh. Yeah. I can tell you my first sim racing, my own first sim racing experience is many years ago with a Logitech. I don't know if it was G27 or whatever it was called back then. That was attached to a glass table, and then a friend and me were playing probably GTA or something like that in his living room. So that was my first experience with sim racing. After that, I've been racing for many years myself, and my son has been racing for many years, trying to establish a professional career. So I would say, if I only could choose one way of categorizing sim racing, to me it would be practicing for real world tracks. That's what comes to my mind.
Okay, that's perfect. But before we start delving in Asetek sim racing, I just want to go or to ask you what you feel about the current state of sim racing. Because sim racing have such a big jump since COVID time, since you guys joined the sim racing community. So as a new person that joined the party, how is your point of view on the current state of sim racing?
Well, it's interesting because it's, in my opinion, a very dynamic market. It seems to have been pretty static for many years with the same competitors for many, many years. And then all of a sudden, both ourselves, but also several other new competitors turns up. And in my view, shake things up pretty hefty. And I think sim racing today is not what it was 5 years ago. Then I guess it's depending who you ask whether that's good or bad. But for sure, all gaming, including sim racing, whether you call it gaming or not gaming, I think that's an emotional thing. But the point is, during COVID, everything related to gaming and let's say indoor activity obviously had a massive boost. Then things fell off a little bit, and then I think a lot of things are trying to establish itself on their normal level.
Yeah, I totally agree. And like I say, you guys came from the front door, arrive a little bit late, as you say, because to the market for 4 years. And but you, I think you came straight from the front door. You knew what you had to do. You knew where you have. Of course, it's always some some mistakes. It's always never going to be 100% accurate. But until now, for the people that follow, I always see that you guys the steps been very steady and very well done it. So I want to ask where the computer development parts have come across of sim racing, and if that help you to develop the company the way it is.
Well, you know, I did not wake up one morning and say, now I want to make sim racing equipment. The reason we went into the sim racing market, because as I just told you, we used it as a tool for our real life racing. The reason we did it was that we have this gaming academy here at Asetek, where, let's say, local young people can come and game for free and use our great gaming equipment. And as a part of that, instead of just doing Counter Strike, I also wanted to offer people a chance of doing real gaming. So drive some cars, right? And we built 5 rigs. And out of the 5, I don't think we ever managed to have all of them run at the same time. Let's say, just for the sake of it, we are 4 or 5 years back now. And on top of that, you really needed to be a PC geek or a PC expert to get it to run. Driver issues, firmware issues, hardware issues, buttons falling off. You needed 4 or 5 different hacks and drivers and small utilities to make every simulator work. And that was actually drove me towards the decision that, hey, I think we can do this better. And
Okay.
at the time we launched our first products, of course, a lot of the, let's say, competitors' products had become better, but the fundamentals were still the same. So that was actually what drove the decision, and that's why we entered, and that's also why we were, let's say, pretty sharp on what we wanted, because we wanted to fix some of the issues that was there. And as of today, where we spend absolutely the most money is on software development.
Okay.
And
That's
I think
interesting.
that's probably where people are trying to save most money, because one thing is hardware development and you get physical product in your hands, but to develop software, it's pretty costly. But I felt very strongly about this idea of having one piece of software taking care of everything.
Okay, that's quite interesting the way that you express it, because really good. And now that you're talking about your past experience of racing, I want to know, how was that helping you on development of sim racing? You think have some weight your past experience as a driver on F3 cars, no? In
Yes, yeah.
in America.
The quickest cars I have driven myself are F3 level cars. And I would say it meant everything. As you know,
Okay.
the first product we launched was the Invicta pedals, and as you probably also know, in the sim sport or sim racing communities, there's been a lot of debate whether a brake pedal is hard or not hard, and all that stuff. And we were 100% sure what it is we wanted, what we wanted to design, how it should feel, and um, again, we have taken this non-compromise or no compromise style choices of how our pedals should feel. We have softened it up a little bit over time, not literally softened the brake pedal up, but we have softened the scope up a little bit so that they have more adjustability and more flexibility than perhaps from the beginning, because we also learn, and of course we also listen to our customers' feedback. But I would say this thing of making it feel like a true race car, that has been the whole deal. And then I would say also from a quality perspective, of course we are not perfect, but we try to be when it comes to quality, because we don't want our products to break.
Yeah, you now that you talk about the break, I want to ask you a question as you have the experience. On the past episodes where the Philippe Albuquerque, that is IMS driver, he won Le Mans, and one of the things that he caught attention was that if a brake pedal on real life is 80 kilos, we cannot put 80 kilos on a simulator because you have the G forces that are not helping us. You don't have the pressure of the car, the movements, that help to soft a little bit. Do you agree with that? When come to sim racers, want the
No,
pedals very hard, and after on the real life is not that hard.
no, not really, because yes, you
Okay.
have, of course, you have the G forces helping you, but you are constrained by the harness. So it's your leg
Hmm.
that can move, and of course it will help you. And then keep in mind that when people refer to 100 bars of pressure, for example, that statement makes no sense if you don't know what the diameter of the bore of the brake cylinder actually is. Because if you have a
Yep.
tiny diameter of the brake cylinder, then you'll get a huge pressure. You could hit much more than 100 bars. Whereas if you have a big bore a brake cylinder, then it will be difficult. So, I think that the thing is that you apply the same technique. If you have small, skinny legs as a 8-year-old go-kart driver, then of course you cannot apply 140 bars on the Invicta, but then you can adjust it. So the technique is the
Yep.
same. So the brake feel hard to you. So again, you take the 8-year-old kid, put that in. When you jump in the seat, what he feels is hard, you would feel as super soft. So therefore, you would need to change it. So to me, it's more like the technique you use and the sensation you do when you brake. That should be the same, independent of whether it's a simulator or not.
Okay, creating that muscle memory is what you
Yes,
refer.
absolutely.
Perfect. Perfect. That's beautiful. And that you talk about the financial, I just want to remember something. Did you expect of financial to bring a new company to the business, a sim racing company? All that spend on develop, you still construct for the financial parts, or you are a little bit free to deliver whatever you want?
I mean, as you may remember, we bought some IP, software firmware from Simcube, and then
Mhm.
we bought UGT, and of course we've invested heavily in this. And one day we also hope it turns into a business.
Okay.
I think last year our revenues were $8 million. I think that's pretty respectable for our second year of revenue, and with a very limited product program on until the end, at least, or the end of the year. So I think we have been received very well, very good customer feedback, and at the end of the day, we are running a business. So of course we are looking at the financials, but right now, all up until now, including the Invicta steering wheel that is coming pretty soon, we are trying to launch what we've been able to launch. We have not
Okay.
been we've not been looking at what has been the biggest or what would have been the biggest revenue generator. Because if you look at it like that, then of course we should have had the Invicta steering wheel out at the same time as the Invicta pedals and the Invicta wheelbase, where we've had the Forte wheel and the La Prima wheel for quite some time now.
Okay.
But the explanation is simply that developing the Invicta wheel has been a much bigger task from a software perspective because of the screen. Everybody can take a USB display and say we just support SimHop, and then that's it. And there's no development in that. But that's not the route we pursued because, as I said before, we want one piece of software that can control everything, including our screen. Um, we will also have SimHop compatibility, so you can choose if you don't like our software, but at least we don't force
Exactly.
you to. So therefore, it has been a pretty substantial development for us.
Yeah, because you once again mentioned something that is really important on Aztec, is even the way that your ecosystem is not only for Aztec. You are open to other wheels. So for the person, don't strange themselves on only, and that I think help a lot for even sim racers being partnerships or wherever you're gonna create. I think is really good because if I want to have, I could say the Invicta bundle, I can get the Invicta bundle and keep my Asher wheel or keep my SimQ wheel or my Fanatec wheel. So that I think was uh, a fresh of hair, if you understand me, on sim
Yeah,
racing,
absolutely.
because we were being always constrained to this is the ecosystem. Now I can only buy from this ecosystem. So for my part, thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome, and of course we are not a charity organization, but I think I think especially with the wheels, it's important, and the reason it's important is that of course every manufacturer got their own wheelbase, and some of them got more. We have three different ones at this point in time. But if you compare
Mhm.
it to the amount of steering wheels that are out there, it's crazy. So if there should be a new standard for every steering wheel, it makes absolutely no sense. So that's why we decided to open it up, because we don't mind. I mean, from a business perspective, if I can sell a wheelbase and a pair of pedals to people who already invested $1,000 in a steering wheel, for example, hey, that's fine with me. So that was really the thinking.
And for small companies that don't only develop steering wheels, there's a lot of companies that they just want to develop steering wheels. So for them, they are more open to work with your ecosystem because they know if they sell for your ecosystem, or if they sell for other ecosystem, they're going to be compatible. So this is really good. And if you're talking now on partnerships, what is now on your point of view the biggest partnership that you have with on Aztec?
So how do you measure it in a revenue
I
audience or?
oh no, I measure probably inside of the sim racing community. I think so. Let's put inside of the sim racing community.
I would say that personally, the partnership that I've been most proud about is Pagani, and
Pagani, okay.
the reason for that is, in my view, it's such an iconic car brand, and I'm also proud that we were able to convince Pagani to do this with us, and I was down there. Filming with Horacio Pagani myself next to the YRR, and that was. But of course, that's not so much sim racing. That's more
That's
like,
more your
yeah, yeah.
motorsport.
That's more the hypercar side of it. I think one of our better partnerships currently is the one with Matt Malone. It's
Yeah,
he's a funny guy and bringing things down to earth, and I think refreshingly, you could say he's not a reviewer.
no.
He's more like
He's have his own character.
yes,
It's
exactly.
difficult to
It
decipher and
Yeah, but
explain.
but I think it's refreshing that he just say
Yeah,
things as he sees them. Whereas, in my opinion, many reviewers, they have to be very careful with what they say, because on one side they will upset a manufacturer, and at the end of the day, no matter how you put it down, if they don't have manufacturer's equipment to review, then they have no
yeah,
business. And on the other side, they also have to be honest and open and not disappoint their audience, because if they say a product is good and then people buy it and say this is absolutely not good. So, in my view, they are much more sensitive or political. So I think some of these partnerships where there's a lot of fun involved, and it's just like, hey, I love this or I hate this, or you know,
yeah. I think I think was the correct, like we speak before the start of the podcast. I think Matt Malone was the correct partnership for the America audience, despite being now internet is everywhere,
yeah,
so we don't focus. But I think it was the correct partnership because I remember Tony Kanan was one of the partnerships and have some influence, but I think the charisma, the character of Matt Malone these days, when he's doing stream and say jump on a Aztec train and appear a train, we know that is a funny thing, could be for some people childish, but stay, if you know what I mean, make some impact, and that's changed completely. And after other thing that we talked was the micro center in America and the way that you are always full of stock. I think that is one of the main important things in terms of sim racing, because we keep dealing with no receiving stuff sometimes, or delays. That's our normal, unfortunately. But in terms of Aztec, I never hear any problem on that part, and that is really really good. Kevin Magnussen, I want to ask how that work with Aztec. You have any influence on the brand? It's just a question of marketing.
no, that's actually a good question. Of course, in the beginning, it's like, okay, if we can get a Formula One driver associated, that would be great for the brand and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's about being true to your own brand. And as I just said 5 minutes back, what's important for us is that the feeling, the real car feeling, is there. I don't know if you saw the racing movie Talladega Nights,
Yeah,
uh, where he is doing commercials from everything to toothpaste to
yeah,
whatever. And I don't want Kevin Magnussen to say that Asetek Simsport is the preferred brand of NASCAR, and then that's not what we want.
yes,
What we wanted was Kevin's input on how does a Formula One car actually feel. I don't know, because I never drove one. You don't know unless you drove
I
one.
know.
So unless you are among the 21 current people in the field, you don't know. So that's what we really used Kevin for, to sit down with our firmware people and our software people and say, okay, in this corner or on the exit of the corner, it gets sloppy or it doesn't feel right. And we are not saying that our feel of the wheelbase of a Formula One car, that's the fastest if you want to do a sim race. It may not be, it is probably not. what we say is, if you buy one of our wheelbases, we have one from a very exclusive club in the world, i.e., a Formula One driver, who's actually been a big part of tuning all these parameters, so it feels like as close as you can get in a home simulator. And Kevin actually said many times that, of course, it's not the same, and of course, it's not the same as a 100 million euro sim,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
it's very very close, and I think that's cool to know. And then if you don't
Yep.
like it, you can always adjust it in a different direction. But that was a big thing, and we spent a lot of hours on that.
You talk about something really really good because uh like you say, you never been on a F1 car. I never been on an F car, and I think sometimes in terms of sim racing everyone talk, but I would say that probably 95% of us never been on the cars that we drive on the sims. So sometimes I when people start, oh, the car is not drove like this, or I say, but I never have it the experience. I can tell you in track wise from the people that sim racing is getting very well. Sometimes the feelings is difficult, and as you said, depending on the driver, some drivers can feel that way, some drivers can feel that way. So, like Philip told us on the last episode, is if you like something and make you fast, stick to that. Don't keep changing and looking what the professionals do, because on the final is about being fast and adapt, and we need to adapt and feel comfortable. So I think, do you agree?
Yes, and it's, we all come with different perspectives and hobbies, and if your objective is to win a sim race, in my opinion, you need to have a very good understanding about the lines. You need to have a good racecraft, of course, unless you're always in the front. And you need to know a little bit about car setup in each sim, of course, what makes you fast, what doesn't make you fast. So that's one thing, if that's your objective. And in my opinion, to a far extent, although I shouldn't say this as a hardware vendor, I think you can get very, very far with pretty low price hardware. If
I
you
think
have the
so.
fundamentals right and you have the technique and the software settings right. But if you want the best feeling, if that's what you're after, then it's just a different discussion. And,
Yeah,
and that's where we are. Of course, you should be able to dial our equipment in so you can do both. But I used to use my simulator a lot. So, for example, when I lived in California, I only lived, I think, 20, 30 minutes away from Laguna Seca. But
okay.
because Laguna Seca is in a protected area, it's very difficult to get track time. So what I used my simulator for was to, of course, get to know the track and to become faster, car setup, braking points, and things like that. And I can guarantee you, in the race car that I was driving, it would be absolutely useless to have a set of very soft pedals that, just on off. Useless.
Yeah,
Whereas if I could get pedals that actually felt like the real deal, I could train my muscle memory, I mean, down to the breaking points of, I would say, almost half meters. That's how accurate I could apply it afterwards. So it's all a question about what is it you are trying to achieve. In terms of motion platform, it's really fun. I mean, it's great fun, but it's also great arcade. Because if you want to dial in your motion platform to replicate a real car, it should almost not be moving. Of course, it is moving, but not a lot. Whereas if you have
exactly.
300 millimeters of travel and you almost become seasick, it's really fun, but it has nothing to do with the real race car. Um,
I feel the same. I feel that sometimes
yeah,
it's done by for video,
yeah,
just for show off.
yeah,
That
exactly. And
you do 10 minutes and after you are completely
yeah,
exhausted.
exactly. And nothing is right and nothing is wrong. It's just about what you use it for. And then
Yeah,
then we can see there are lots of people who is actually not sim racing that much, but they have the most expensive rigs on the planet because their passion at the end of the day is about building it and expanding it and changing it. And for example, another hobby of mine is I have probably built 10, 12 different Harley Davidsons. And
Okay.
the current one I have now is a panhead from 1948 that I basically built from boxes. And I don't write that much, partly because the weather in Denmark is always shit, and partly because I don't have a lot of time. But I love the process of building it. So I can see a lot of our customers are also just people who want to buy the coolest rigs,
Yeah.
and they don't actually use them that much.
You're talking cooling rigs. Is Podium in America making a big impact that always putting on that rigs the Aztec software?
Yeah, they are a good customer and partner of ours, and they are quite successful. And I think that is I think it's an overlooked market, this
Okay.
complete rig thing, because again, back to why we got into this, building a sim rig is still a daring and expensive task for many people. And I have a lot of friends myself with, let's say, more money than sense, but they don't have the skills, nor do they have the interest in building one. They just want to use it.
Exactly.
And I think that's where Podium One is doing a great job of supplying these complete rigs.
All right, perfect. And just to finish before we're talking about sponsors, is the strategy about Aztec and Sim Racing Esports. Because I know you guys, and here on UK, where I'm established, you are having a good partnership with Sim staff, with Josh Martin, that I think is working very well. Because Josh make now some partnership with F1 Authentics, and I know because I work in Silverstone that he is there around Silverstone too. So I'm really happy for Josh. In which ways you guys gonna support more the sim racing esports?
This, how should I phrase it? We will support everything that makes business sense to us.
Okay, perfect,
Uh,
perfect.
because we get daily requests of all sorts of sponsorships and whether we want to
I
support
imagine.
this and that. And I think what most people are perhaps not aware is that, and I actually fully agree, one thing is driving sim racing yourself and have a lot of fun with that. But sim racing as a sport, in my opinion, has a long way to go.
Agree.
And
Totally agree.
and for many different reasons. But just take another example. When you have real life race car drivers doing sim racing, unless they are superstars, so Formula One level, they have no audience. And I think that is the challenge. And personally, although I'm really into to real life racing and I spend a lot of my time on real racetracks, I think we should actually separate the two things. I think sim racing should be a achievement in its own.
I
And
totally agree.
I think really good sim racers, they would be able to beat a real race car driver any day of the week in a game, in a sim game, because there's so much more to it than just driving. So I think for sim racing to become really big in terms of viewers, I think we just need more awareness about how difficult it actually is. And we've been through the same on, let's say, regular gaming, Counter Strike, etc. That it's just a computer game. Yes, it is a computer game, but to master that better than anyone else in the world, you still need a lot of skill and a lot of practice. So
Yeah,
I think I don't think the way to promote sim racing is to have real race car drivers do it. I think we need to promote the names within the industry, within sim racing.
I agree with you because a part of let's say the F1 sim racing that have thousands of viewers when they race, when they do the events and always work. The other ones, I think they try to replicate too much what's happened on real life,
Yeah, I
and
agree
after
completely.
sometimes it's difficult because even if you go to see a 24-hour Le Mans, very rarely a person going to stay the 24 hours in front of the truck. The
Yeah,
person go around, they're going to enjoy because it's not only the 24-hour race, it's the 24-hour of camaraderie, of staying everyone together,
absolutely.
talking about cars. So I think we need to like you say, separated and sometimes not crossover so much when it comes to the races. Like for example, let's put range sport, where is competitive to one time, but after turns very repetitive, and a person see one time. This generation is generations of scrolls, as you know, the
Yeah, yeah.
generation that attention span is 1 second, 2 seconds. So I think, like you say, we need to separate it, and but but how we gonna do it? I don't know.
No, but
Is
if you look at the sim race Lawrence Dusova did recently, to raise funds for real
Mhm.
racers, I think that was a great example because it was also a show, and he had different interviews during the race, and nobody, at least nobody I know, wants to look at a sim racing track for 3 hours seeing people running around in circles. But Lawrence made a show out of it. Interviewed, and I was interviewed myself, but interviewed drivers, interviewed team owners, interviewed industry professionals. So it turned more into a TV show than just a race. And I think that's what it's about, taking advantage of the fact that you're online, you can talk to people all over the world in all time zones at the same time, and it's just something that needs to grow.
Yeah, perfect. Now to talk now about that, I have to talk about our sponsors from our part. So remember to subscribe the channel, to hit the like button if you see us on YouTube, and leave a comment. The same if to do it on the audio. Remember, leave a comment, 5 stars, reviews. Let us reach a little bit more. And with your help, we help our drivers. We have 5 drivers that we are constant trying to help. So the revenue that come from the podcast go shift to them, and everything that you can get we try to send to them to help them a little bit more. And of course you have drivers as Jude Peters that now was in Donington Park in Gineta and won the 3 races on the rookie part of the Gineta UK Academy, so thanks to him. Aiden and much more drivers. And of course this podcast is partnered with ImSim, with S2 Racing, and of course Samsung and Rode are helping us to grow up a little bit more. Andre, where can we find you and see a little bit more about you? LinkedIn would be the best found, no?
Yeah, I'm not that big of a social media guy. On Facebook, I'm mainly ranting about the politicians in Denmark, and LinkedIn, I use it to do some promotion for Asetek once in a while. But I think if you would like to know more about Asetek Simsport and myself, I do these product reviews by myself on
Yep.
YouTube, where I take our newest stuff, and I wouldn't say I would review it. It would not be trustworthy anyway. But at least I talk about the products, perhaps in a different way than many others would do. I talk about the future of where are we going, what products are coming. Probably a couple of times a year, I do this live, so that subscribers to our channel, they can online ask me questions.
Yep.
Why is this not working? Why is this working? When can we expect this? Why are you not doing this? I mean, kind of unfiltered. So I think that's probably the best way to follow what I am doing, at least in Aztec.
Perfect. So I can say that that Aztec culture, that's why you mentioned now the being near the community, is part only of Aztec or is a little bit part of Andre?
It's both,
It's both.
for sure.
Okay.
I never dreamt about being a YouTube star. I did this, with Will Ford from Boosted Media. This story, he was breaking the story that Asetek was expanding into to sim racing, and that video got really good feedback. Then I made a video about our pedals, and that was supposed to be it, but it turned out there is a big interest for seeing these small reviews I make, and I guess I'm not that I would claim that myself, but a couple of people have said that I'm the Günther Steiner of sim racing, because I have a direct way of saying things, and I think some people find that amusing. But yeah, I guess because I'm the founder of the company, and because I have, let's say, made the decision to venture into sim racing, and because I'm involved in racing myself, I guess I know a little bit what I'm talking about instead of just being a generalist. So I think that's probably refreshing to some.
Now that you're going to talk about that sim racing equipment, a part of the sim racing pedals, wheelbases, and accessories is coming something more to the Aztec universe.
Yes, we will have our Invicta steering wheel
Okay.
coming soon, and that is really really nice. And also the way we are going to offer it for sale is I don't want to disclose it here, but that's also going to be really nice, and I think also different. Um, and then we will also try to focus a little bit more on, let's say, the value end of our line, because
Okay.
let's face it, that in my opinion, our gear is very fairly priced compared to both competition, quality, and performance, but it is also very expensive equipment. Um, and it would be nice if we could take the Asetek brand and feeling down to, let's say, people willing or able to spend less money. So I think that's going to be good news for most, but that is something we're working on.
So you think that you will enter on the console sim racing part, or just stick to the PC?
So I'm glad you asked that question, but because I think there is a big misunderstanding in the community. The way it works is we could make our wheelbases and steering wheels and pedals console compatible in no time. There's
Oh,
no there's no reason why not, but you
all right.
need a license from, in this case, Sony or Microsoft. And those licenses can be difficult to obtain. And if you don't have it, you cannot support them also because there is, let's call it a handshake chip. So we actually need to buy a chip from Sony or from Microsoft and build that into our product to make it work with the consoles.
Okay.
So we would love to have console support, and I also think we will get it eventually. But unfortunately, it's not up to me to decide it. If it was, we would have had it a long time ago.
Okay. That's part. So let's break down. You have Forte, Invicta, and La Prima. I have to ask you, why the Latin names?
Uh, I think La Prima. I don't think that's a Latin name.
It's a, no Latin as Italian, so the Latin language.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a coincidence.
Okay.
There's, of course, we wanted to create. Well, I can back that. Let's start from a different perspective. When I look at a lot of the competition, both with inside sim racing and also, and then it's of course not the competition to us, but also outside sim racing in tech companies. Then they launch a new product and it's called KXZFE, and it says nothing. Uh,
Okay.
I was more looking into, for example, the car world. So, for example, exactly now BMW, for example, have expanded quite a bit, but exactly a BMW 3 Series, 5 Series, 7 Series, what was it? Then you could
Yep.
have it in different iterations and generations, but you know exactly what it is. And that's what we wanted to create with Invicta. That is the prime of what we are capable of doing in Asetek. And then you have La Prima, which is still good, still great, but of course we have taken some features away to allow the price point. And then you have Forte, where you should, let's say, have the best value. So you don't have the exact premium free features that you do on Invicta, and there's a little bit more to it than La Prima. So that's the mid range. And as long as I'm here, or at least I get a better idea, that's how it's going to continue. So, for example, let's say we will have a new Invicta wheelbase. Let me just be clear, it's not on the drawing board right now. So, but if we had, it would probably call Invicta 2 or something like that. We would not
Okay.
change that. So you always know if you buy an Invicta product or if you sell an Invicta product, you know exactly what it is and where it is in our ecosystem.
So you're gonna think that the Invicta wheel, gonna be ready for the Sim Expo this year?
Yes.
Okay, all
When
right,
is
there we
it?
go.
I should probably have asked that
I,
question before. I don't remember now.
October, no?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
We should
October.
be ready for
October,
that. Um,
and we will see Matt Malone coming as the weapon
yes,
from Aztec.
we actually have running Invicta wheels,
Okay,
also with the screen and the software and in different
that's good.
configurations. And it's so at this point, it's a manufacturing thing that we are gearing up for mass manufacturing.
Okay, but if going to be available there, I think going to be
Yes,
good because for the people that never been to the Sim Expo last year, Aztec came completely with all the party ready. You guys, I think,
yes.
put a show completely, and so I expect in this year have to be better. You know, the people are like,
I,
it's always like this.
I may actually disappoint you because we will do a great show as always. And again, if they allow us, we will fire up the LMP3 car at the booth. Finally they allowed us last year after talking to the fire department more than once. But last year we were actually also lucky in the sense that the booth next to us, um, the company who was supposed to exhibit there, they canceled. So instead of having a lot of empty space, they actually offered us that space. So that's why our booth simply got gigantic. And a lot of people they're like, "Whoa, Asetek is really serious about this," and we are,
Exactly.
but it's not a sorry dick measuring contest. It was actually also just a little bit by luck and coincidence.
Yeah, but went well. I think Simtech, I can say, put a show, and I will put as a B-roll the steering wheel, the wall. I think was really really fun. I think I still have my Sim boots that are there. The
Yeah, I
camera
see
is
them.
focus on focus. Now the camera wait a little bit. I just move. I just move to the area of Silverstone because we start working for the track, and we're still setting up a little bit everything. So I'm using the old camera and the focus is a little bit playing. But yeah, it's the only part of Aztec that I own it on the moment. The Fort bundle, and not the pedals, but the Fort steering wheelbase
Yeah.
is on the plans. I hope so until Christmas. So let's hope until Christmas is on my plan to acquire. But yeah, let me ask: the race up 3 is still fresh as we speak it, but always been the engagement from everyone positive.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you cannot please everyone, of course.
Oh, yes,
But
normally.
our focus have been that when we launched our products, the first products, I think all reviewers on our software had a consensus that it was good software, it was stable, and it worked. But compared to some of our competitors, it was a little bit basic. And that's,
Okay.
of course, logic in the sense that we were new. So the race up 3 was really to, catch up to the competition. And in my opinion, we have, and also more than have. And, for example, these LED features that we have made, of course, there are always some people who think LEDs are gadgets and not really valuable and blah, blah, blah. But the general consensus is that it's really useful. And
Okay.
while it may not make you faster, it may absolutely avoid crashes and help you on track to see car spotting flags, make sure you don't get DQ'd and things like that. And again, to me, it's important to innovate. And the fact is, if you have LED on your wheelbase, you can turn it off if you don't like it. But if you like it and don't have it, you cannot turn it on. So and it's actually been a big job to do, because what some people don't realize is that we have done much more than just LED lighting. For example, as you know, we make a big deal out of our pedals, especially the hydraulic ones. And the setup, the mapping of the pedals, we have completely redone. So it's much more granular now. That's something a lot of people actually requested. Can we make it more granular than it is? So there's a lot of things in the race up that's been changed without being
Okay.
noticeable to many people.
So now the last two questions are a little bit more personal. The first one I want to ask you: Because you been make material for Corsair. How you see now the Corsair have the possibility to join the sim racing with the part of the Fanatec?
Well, I don't know if
Without
it's a
being
done.
politic,
It,
without being politic.
I don't know if it's a done deal yet, but it seems to be. And on one hand, with Corsair entering, it of course seems that there are others that believe this could be a substantial
Yeah.
market opportunity. So that's of course good. It's good for everyone if it's growing. Um, on the other hand, we have to wait and see whether it will continue as Fanatec. It probably will from a brand perspective if you look at how Corsair normally acquires companies, or whether it will truly be a Corsair. To us, it doesn't really change anything because our let's say our existence in the sim racing world is based on the real race car feel, product performance and quality, basically, and
Mhm.
then customer service.
All right.
And if you look at our customer service ratings, I think we are at 4.7 in Trustpilot, and no, we are not buying them. Yeah, but then it
Yeah,
was
these
kind of
days,
pointless.
unfortunately.
And let me just back up 2 minutes to what I just said. Fundamentally, I believe in any market, you can watch the market as a triangle. And in one corner of the triangle, you have cost. In the other end of the triangle, you have customer service. And in the third corner, you have, let's say, product quality slash performance. And I don't know of any company in the world that master all three. And if you
Exactly.
map out all sim racing competitors, I'm sure you can pinpoint which two corners they are in. So I don't want to mention anyone, but I think
Yeah, no,
everybody
no,
can
no,
do
no, no. I
that.
think is
And
very clear
yeah,
what you say and
and
explain.
and I would say our core corners and values are customer service and product performance. So that means we are not the cheapest. We're also not the most expensive, but you cannot do all three. And I think as of right now, I don't see our major competitors put focus on the same corners as we do. And that's why I believe there is plenty of room for Asetek in this market, and also for Corsair for that perspective. Because in my opinion, we don't focus in the same spots.
I think I agree with you. My question was more because you work with Corsair where you develop some cooling
Yeah.
parts from computers for them. So I want to know because you be there inside what was your point of view, but that's really good. But now a tricky question. What is your sim racing hardware setup or software? Let's go for the software that you prefer. Which type of sims do you prefer?
That's really a bad question to ask me because the main time I spend in a rig is not for racing. It's for feeling the hardware out and
Okay.
am I happy with the pedals? Am I happy with the grips? Am I,
Yeah,
but
okay.
because I used this as a tool many years ago, it was always R Factor 2 because
All
that
right.
was the sim that was available at the time. And that was the sim that was just the most natural one and where we could get the cars that we wanted to simulate. So I would say if I have to, if you corner me and pick one, I would for me say Laguna Seca or Sonoma Raceway because those were my
Tracks
two
to
home
go.
tracks. And then
Yeah.
I would pick a Pro Formula Master, which was the car that I drove. And then, R Factor 2. That would probably be my favorite setup.
And to finish, the realism versus sim racing. Where do you think that is falling short the sim racing in terms of realism? Well, of course, without the obvious thing, the G
You,
forces and
you should mount a rubber hammer on the rear side of the seat, so every time the driver does something stupid, you will actually get hurt. Because to me, when I mean, you can see from Monaco this weekend how bad it can
Yeah,
go in real racing
unfortunately,
as
yeah,
well. But
yeah,
I would say, especially in sim racing, there are really a lot of people doing a lot of stupid things that is ruining everybody else's races. And of course, there's no consequence. You are online, you don't have to face anyone. You could use a false name if you wanted to. You can do a lot of stupid stuff, and of course, you can get penalty on your iRacing license and all of that. But at the end of the day, if
it's
something
not the same
hurt you,
cost. Yeah, it's not the same.
no. If something hurt you, and it hurts to, I think there will be a video out, not too far out from one of my races where I actually flipped my Formula car, and
Okay,
it hurt, and it also hurt my wallet quite substantially. And I would say the financial impact and the physical impact, those are the dimensions that I miss the most in sim racing, because they will actually dictate your, let's say, behavior a little bit.
I think that's why you touch something. That's why sometimes real drivers are not so fast in sim racing because they put the fear
Yes,
where sim racing don't put the fear.
absolutely,
If
and it's a big deal. I can tell you at Sonoma. So what is that? That's corner two. That's an off camber corner.
yep,
If you go
yeah,
off
yep,
there, or turn 10 for that sake, there's a big wall, concrete wall, and trust me, if you hit that, it hurts. And if you think a wheelbase is expensive, then try to put a carbon car in the wall.
yeah.
So for sure, naturally, unless you are very privileged, then most racing drivers, being it karting or cars, they have this natural respect of, okay, I need to make sure to bring it home.
Okay. I agree with you because, like I said, we sponsor and we partner some drivers that are jumping from sim racing to real racing. One of them is on rallycross. That the cost of rallycross still big, still around 20K on UK. So 20K, 20,000 euros. Let's put euros.
Yeah.
That's still. But if you go to a Gineta Junior and you're talking about kids with 14, 15, you are going for the 250,000 euros
Yeah, but you,
a season, and this is the beginning
yeah, but you know
without crashes, without
yeah, yeah,
putting
but
crashes, without
as you
putting
know, my
everything.
my son, we tried to build a racing career for him, and just to give you a real life example, he was running the 24 hours of Spa in an AMG GT3,
Okay,
and a very famous motorcycle driver actually put him in the wall, and the headlamp alone. I don't want to say something that is not true, but I think it was 12 or 15,000 euros just
yeah,
to replace the headlamp. The crash damage was way bigger than that, but just the headlamp.
yeah,
And I'm like, why are you running a 14 or 12,000 euro headlamp in a race? Who cares? But then we have to remember it's the car manufacturers that are behind it. And what you see on the racetrack, if you can get that out in the real life, and vice versa. But that's one of the reasons racing is really expensive. And, the headlamp, that was the least our headaches. But that just shows you one crash can end an entire career.
yeah. Same thing. The kid was driving full Donington, so it's his first experience on the cars. So Jude Peters is just jump from sim racing, and he's really fast on sim racing. He adapts very well, and unfortunately, because he drive on UK, the first races in Silverstone, and after in Norton Park was on the rain, as you can imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
So this this is the first race in the Donington Park that he was finally at least in some dry conditions, and he was really well. But his windscreen is still broken from the front, a little bit cracked from some stone,
Yeah.
and it's no point to repair because the cost of that will take a pair of tires that they can
Yeah, but
use.
I
you
can
know,
I can understand the aspiration from sim drivers who wants to compete out in real life. But I just, sometimes when I read some of the comments in our forums, for example, it's like, oh, your stuff is really expensive. I could just take an old beater and go and do track days. And I'm sorry, dude, you have no idea what real racing costs.
yeah.
you know,
Until they crash, because after if they
yeah,
crash, you will not pay only the car. You
yeah,
need to pay the costs of of repair the truck.
yeah. But
That's that's other thing that people
you
keep forgetting.
you really really need to be wealthy to go
Yeah,
racing at a competitive level, and
100%.
that's probably what I like the most about sim racing, because I fought hard for my son to help him with his career, and he's been racing more or less all over the world, and we've had a lot of good time and opportunities together that I really appreciate. But I also have to say that the what is that 700,000 euros we could establish a year from our sponsor network and business clubs and what have we, it was a drop in the sea.
Yeah,
It's just so expensive.
yeah. So we have two, for the people that follow the podcast, we have two professional drivers. Antonio Felix da Costa, that
Mhm.
now just won in Shanghai on Formula E. And he was a Red Bull Junior Academy that unfortunately was almost there on Formula One, and
Yeah,
suddenly not the money didn't come, the right money didn't come. And the same thing with Philippe Albuquerque,
yeah,
that the podcast was just released. And it's the same thing. Philippe was the colleague of Vettel, but after Vettel, they was face to face, they was taking each other on tracks and replace each other in competitions, and they was both of them on the same level. But after one, the money scream a little bit higher and help open a little bit more doors, and unfortunately it is what it is when it come to that.
yeah. Racing is business and it's big money, and
Yeah.
we are not going to change that, no matter how much we would like to. But that's also why I think that in the longer run, sim racing should be in a world on its own. Yes,
Totally agree.
there are a huge overlap of skills needed, whether you go from one to the other or vice versa, and for sure they're complementary. But the big advantage sim racing has is, other than it doesn't hurt, is that almost everyone can afford participating.
Yeah. And just to say goodbye, if you have to choose a La Prima, a Fort, sorry, and now I'm saying wrong, the Fort, Invicta, and La Prima, which one would you choose?
It's a kind of stupid question in the sense that
Because all them are your babies.
yeah, do you want no, but more like, do you want a 7 series or 5 series or 3 series? Of
Yeah.
course, if I have the money, I would go for a 7 series, right? Um, but I think I would actually buy the La Prima.
La Prima?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the reason I say it is that the feeling is so good. The quality of the hardware is the same. Yes, you compromise a little bit on some bells and whistles, but I think in terms of value for money, I would definitely buy that.
All right. Perfect. Andre, thank you so much for your availability and to
You're welcome.
finally, because
Thank
we speak, I think, on last Sim Expo. I think it was Sim Expo that I speak with you a little bit, no hair on that time, still fighting the cancer, but now we are back 100%. And finally, after almost 7, 8 months, we finally sit down and recording the podcast. Thank you so much.